brought up an interesting subject. He said, sometimes when it comes to manifesting things, if I want something really bad, I feel like I never get it. But if I don't want something very badly, then I feel like I always get it. And so I kind of just gave up on wanting things. And I completely can relate to that. And I'm sure all of us can, where you think about something that you really, really want, and it's just, you want it so bad that it just never comes. But then if you don't want something that much and you hardly give it any thought, and it just shows up out of nowhere. And it kind of makes you want to shy away from wanting anything, because it's like, I don't want to push it away by wanting something. But I told him, I'm like, actually, that's just because when we want something so badly, so many times we can get in the way of ourselves by thinking thoughts like, being fearful that it won't come. Fear of not getting it can hold it at bay and can stop it from coming to you. And that's when you start to think, the more I want something, the less likely it will be that it will come. But it's not true. It's the more that I offer resistant thought to my subject that I'm wanting, that is what's causing it to stop coming to me. So it's not the actual desire that's stopping it from coming to you. It's this fear that it will never come. Also, thinking that this thing that you want, thinking that it is so important that if you don't get it, that's something that you won't ever be happy, or that, like, for example, a relationship. If I am yearning for a relationship, and then I have this thought, a repetitive thought, that's key, because it's the consistent thoughts and stories that we tell ourselves that actually forms our reality. So if I start to have these thoughts that, if I can't find a relationship, I'll never be happy, I'll never find true love, or I'll never get to have a family, and it's all of that crap that actually stops it from coming to us. It's not the actual desire, because people can have really strong desires, and as long as they're not hindering themselves with thoughts that block that desire, then you're home run. It'll come to you easily and fast. But it's a lot of the time we doubt ourselves. We doubt our ability to manifest things. And then what came up in our conversation this morning is that we doubt our ability, our deservability, we doubt that we are worthy enough to receive that. And especially when it comes to relationships, it's a great example. It's like, maybe I'm not good enough for somebody. Maybe I don't get to have the same love that everyone else gets to experience, or maybe I don't deserve to have a family or be a mother. Blah, 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 blah. All these bullshit stories that we tell ourselves, because we think that that's going to somehow bring us back to earth, and that, dreaming big is a dangerous thing because it can make you feel let down. But it's all to do with the thoughts. And in a previous video, I mentioned looking at your thought life like your mind, separating yourself from your mind and becoming the observer of your mind, and the one that's in control of which way it is pointed. And one analogy that I use that I really like is a dog on a leash. And you can imagine whatever kind of dog you want, but if it's barking at you, you stop and you remember that this dog is a tool that you can use. It can lead you wonderful places, but if you let it can take you down the wrong track. And so you stop and you take authority over your mind, and you're like, no, I don't agree with that, because you know why? It's making me not feel good. And your emotions are your indicator as to whether this thought is in alignment with what your inner being is thinking about the same thing that you were thinking about. So when you are having a perspective on anything, there are two of you. There is a human version of you, and then there is your higher mind. And both of you are having a perspective. And when you feel joy, love, compassion, ecstasy, and just passion and excitement, that is when you and your inner being are looking at something and you are both having the same perspective. That is when you know that you are in alignment, in line with your source, in line with your inner being's point of view. Those emotions of joy and any positive emotion, you are heading, sure, there are different variants of positive emotions, but if you are heading in the right direction of a positive emotion, and you are heading closer to what your inner being sees as the right perspective. And obviously when you get to that real ecstatic state of mind, that's when you're so in alignment. That is when you're I see it now. I see how clearly, how wonderful this all is. And your inner being is like, yes, I agree with you. And when you feel like shit, that's when your inner being's like, oh, I don't actually agree with that. And that is why you feel that separation from yourself almost. It feels like you're not even who you are anymore when you feel like shit, because your emotions, they make you feel warmer or colder, right? And when you feel colder, you feel more isolated, more alone, more without support. And that's only because you are moving away from the perspective of your inner being. And you can never separate yourself. And that's why you can't turn off those negative emotions when you are focused in a negative way. I don't know if you've noticed that, but you can't look at something that's terrible. You can't turn off those emotions. You can't ignore them. Like, they are there to remind you, and that's because you are never separated from your source. You are never separated from your inner being, and unless you're in alignment with what they're thinking, then you're going to feel like shit, basically. So you can always measure the thought life that you have based on your emotions. And so when your thought life starts to make you feel amazing, that is when you are in alignment with what your inner being is thinking. And also, when you are feeling amazing, that is the mood and the emotions, that is like the vibration that is swirling around you like a vortex of energy. And that vortex of energy is actually there regardless of what mood you're in. But the mood that you're in is what is the flavor of that vortex. And the flavor of that vortex is, of course, going to match you up with more things that match the flavor of your vortex. So if you've got like a really happy vibration going on around you, more happy things will come to you if you can maintain that. And if you've got a really depressed vibration going around you, I don't know if you've heard the saying, misery loves company. It's because they match you up. It'll draw to you more situations, more people, more experiences that match that depressive state. So you get to choose how you feel, and how you feel is based on what you're looking at and how you are thinking about it. So it all comes down to perspective and what you are thinking about. And so when you're surfing your emotions, you just got to keep reaching for thoughts that feel better than the last one. And we can always do that. We can always find a better thought than the last one. And sometimes you're not going to go from depression all the way to ecstasy in one jump. Sometimes you have to go from depression to blame. Sometimes blaming somebody for the way you feel feels a little bit better than depression. And then from blame, you can go to anger. Anger is another one from depression, and some people think that that's bad, but it's actually a step up. And you don't want to hang around in those low emotions for too long. When you are taking a step up from a low vibrational mood, and you make one, and you feel it, you can feel the slight release. You're like, oh, that feels a bit better. Keep going. Don't just stay there in blame or anger. Move on. Find something better, because there is always a better emotion to feel from those lower vibrational moods. And so you can crawl your way out of those really deep, dark feelings, one emotion upgrade at a time. And don't let anyone else tell you that you are wrong from going from depression to anger. That's why other people's opinions can kind of go away sometimes, because they don't actually know where you're at on your journey and how relevant this step is to get you to the next step, because making huge jumps sometimes just isn't fucking possible. And so other people's opinions of where you're at doesn't need to matter, because they don't know. They don't see the whole picture. But the one person that does see the whole picture is your inner being, and they can see that you are making improvement, and that's why you feel the relief. That's why when you go from depression to anger, you feel a bit more power, a bit more relief. It's and then you keep going up and up and up to like a place of acceptance, and then neutrality, and then hopefulness, and then there might be pessimism down here, and then you keep going up until you get to joy. But sometimes that can be a long process, or you can get it done in a day. Often really just depends on how long you've been in the bad mood for, which is why don't stay in a bad mood. That's why they say don't go to bed angry, because that, you can wake up sometimes feeling the same way. However, if you feel like you can't get a hold of your mind, sometimes just going to bed can really make it a big difference. It really depends on how far you let it get going. And that's why I always talk about prevention is better than cure, because getting ahead of your emotions is key, and not having to go all the way down to come all the way back up. If you can, it's like playing a video game. Once you have the controllers in your hand and you realize how much control you have over your thoughts and your emotions, you're not going to go down all the time because you'll have the controllers in your hand. And that's the key, is remembering that you have the control. That is the first step in taking control, is remembering that it doesn't have to control you. And so when you start to get creative control of your mind, you start to level up in life, so to speak, because you start to get more things that you want. Because you realize that you can, I can actually direct this. I can direct my thoughts in a positive way. I don't have to let it talk my head out. Like, just sometimes, don't you feel like those thoughts are thinking you, because they have so much life and momentum to it, that you're just kind of getting like, you're kind of just getting berated by all these thoughts. And so many of us just sit there and take it. Like, we're just like, yep. Oh my God, you're so right. Holy shit. And then you're just sitting there in your own mind, just like listening to all this shit go on. But that's when I'm telling you now, like, you actually don't have to do that. You don't have to listen to all that crap story. You can be like, no, sit, stop it. Take authority over your mind. Talk to it like it's a naughty dog that's barking all the time. No, and you stop that, and you take control. And you go and distract yourself. You have the ability to focus on anything you want. Do you realize that? Even if you're in a prison cell, you still have the ability to focus on any thought that you choose. We have so much choice. So find something that will distract you in that moment. Do whatever it takes to stop that thought pattern, to stop it, to stop the momentum of it. You can do that. Trust me, you can. And I actually never knew that when I was younger. I didn't know. Like, I just literally thought whatever thought was in my head was the thing I had to focus on at that time. My life was just so turbulent and tumultuous. It was just trauma after trauma, just everywhere. And it was because that was all that was going on in my mind. And now I realize, I choose what goes on in my mind. I do. No one else does. And I choose my actions. And taking control of your mind is an action. And so that brings me back to my point of my morning conversation with the stranger this morning. And that is, so many of us do not realize that we are creating our lives from our thought life. And so if you have a negative belief about desiring things, and because they may not come to you, soften it and just show yourself that there has been times when I have really wanted something and it has come to me. I'm sure that you can all think of that, when you've really wanted something and it came to you. Prove to yourself that you can do this. Start with small things and soften the way that you think about everything. Choose a thought that lights you up. Be mindful of your emotions when you're thinking a thought. They are trying to guide you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am honored to bring these videos to you. And if you are feeling stuck, or you're just sick of the limiting beliefs that are holding you back from the life that you know you're meant for, then you're not alone. And this is exactly the kind of work that I do with my one-on-one coaching clients. So if this speaks to you and you would like some extra support, please reach out. My email is in my bio, and I will see you guys at the next video.